much hate this video will garnish. It shouldn't really garnish any hate. It will. You know, you can psychoanalyze anything, and being able to predict things that are about to happen, including those that are in the stock market. They analyze the psychology of human beings to determine where things are going to roll, specifically regarding Sony versus any other camera. I'm not hedging Sony against Fujifilm or Nikon, but specifically Sony. There's a lot of parallels you can draw in gear, and of course it's about the image, it's not about the gear, okay? Everybody keeps posting that in the messages as if that is under any sort of contention or debate. Nobody's debating the obvious here regarding the image or what's between your two ears and the creation of, or the idea of the image that you create. But specifically regarding Sony versus any other camera manufacturer, or even Fujifilm specifically, there's a psychology that exists there that I've actually seen in several other areas, and it's always a back and forth, and I'm not comparing like PlayStation versus Xbox. That'd be a good analysis, right? That's actually Sony's main income is the PlayStation console. But specifically like Apple versus Mac, or Rolex versus a Casio. Now, I've got a nice Submariner Rolex. Someone would say, well, the Casio, since it doesn't work off a perpetual drive, which constantly has to be turned, and the Casio has greater specifications for accuracy, and it has 10,000 bells and whistles. Remember some of the old digital Casio watches? Now the watch that's actually replaced Casio would be a Citizen, and I actually also have a Citizen watch. That it has a very high specification. It's self-charging because it has a solar cell underneath the actual face of the timepiece itself. It's called an eco drive, or specifically a better analogy that people are really familiar with, like Apple versus PC. And some of the insults that's actually hurled back and forth is almost 100% parallel between Sony and say Fujifilm or even Nikon. The PC people say, well, and that bloody, and I've got a lot of Apple products, but I always despise Steve Jobs, and I kind of hate Apple as a company and some of the, you know, some of the douchey stuff that they do. So, Apple's obviously got a ton of my money, but people accuse Apple of a fact, which is that it has third-party solid-state drives. It has the same processors in it as a Windows laptop or a Windows PC operating system. And that's true. They're always either using AMD or Intel processors, and they're all using more or less 1 or 3 or 5 different solid-state drives or hard drives, depending on what you're getting. And they're all using LG or Samsung displays. And then people will say, you know, why the hell are you spending so much on an Apple computer? Is it an ethos, or is it some sort of aura around an Apple? No, that's not the case. And people, exactly, specifically those that gravitate towards Sony, really are, and this is not an insult, but I mean, I've done a lot of analysis on this, and I psychoanalyze a lot of stuff. It's like, you know, why would someone buy an inferior camera that doesn't really have any support and isn't made as well, and it's kind of like obsoleted every 9 months? And it's the same thing that actually drives the PC people. And I don't own a PC anymore. Literally all my stress just vanished ages ago when I left PCs for Macs. And people say, well, the specifications are never that awesome on a Mac, and that's true. And there's like a psychological disconnect that like PC people have from a Mac. And usually they've never tried one. They don't know what they're talking about, but they will rattle off facts that, well, you know, there's not enough RAM on the Mac machine. There's doesn't have the specifications. It's not good for gaming, and all that's true. I mean, the PC specs, you can always get a PC for cheaper with far superior specifications. You know, this is undeniable. And then PC people and the psychology that they have and the mentality that they have will always state, well, that's all that counts. You know, it's cheaper and it's faster, it's got more RAM. It's like, no, you really don't get it. You don't get it. Ever heard of the old saying, greater than the sum of the parts? It's like, well, yes, it has the same processor in it. Not necessarily the same manufacturer, like AMD or Intel. It's got the same solid state or hard drive in it, same LG or Panasonic. It's like, well, why are you paying so much for a damn Mac? Because, A, it'll last longer. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. They have far superior resale value. A PC, after like a year or two, it isn't worth garbage on eBay. You know, you sell like a 5-6-year-old Mac on eBay, people bid on them like crazy. They're more expensive up front, but you'll always get your money out of them in the end. You know, if you dump them every, 3 years or so. Most people don't dump them, they just continue to use them for obvious reasons, because they're still working and they're reliable. A really hardcore parallel between an Apple computer and Fujifilm, for example. Fujifilm is always dropping firmware updates and expanding the system, and it has integration and menus that no other camera has. Certainly not Sony, not even Nikon. And this is something people actually don't get. It's like the continuity of the operating system. I'm not sitting here worried about viruses like I was in PC. I'm not worried about nasty, disgusting incompatibility and like pop-up spam all over the place. I mean, the Windows operating system, ever since after Windows 7, it has just been a horrible, disgusting mess. The psychology is almost identical. Now, you can't go too far down the road, but the parallels are really, really stark. People that are always praising Sony cameras are exactly like PC people. So it's got better specifications. You know, that's the superficiality of what you see. I mean, this is true, but you're not able to see the big picture. It's like, what can't you see in a camera? It's like, well, I only see what I see, the specifications. Like, no, you don't get it. There's the ecosystem, the lenses, the build quality, the support, the firmware updates, the reliability. That's what you can't see. Every person that reviews the camera says, well, it's got this spec, this spec, this spec. That's great, but that's only half the picture. What do you mean? I just listed all the specifications of this new Sony camera. You did, but you didn't list the lenses, the support, the build quality, on and on and on and on. Firmware updates, which Sony doesn't get any unless there's some sort of major issue. That's the stuff people don't see. PC people are exactly like Sony people. I swear to God, their psychology, and this is not really a bash video. If you think it is, you're wrong. But I mean, it's actually, amazing how many parallels the psychology follows between the countless things. I used to do tech support on the MacBook Air. I've written articles for Apple. Some of the articles are still up for Apple. The psychology is the same. The stuff that I hear out of the PC people, hey, PC is way cheaper, and it's far faster, and I can game with it, and costs a lot less, and it's got a lot better specifications, it's got more RAM, bigger solid state. It's like all of that's true, but you don't get it. A lot of PC people, not all of them, but a lot, are absolutely perplexed why anybody would spend like a significant amount of money for a Mac. I've owned more laptops than you could shake a stick at. Nothing on this earth has been more reliable than the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. The newer ones where they've removed all the connectivity off of them, i.e. dongle gate, is a mess. I mean, it's only got USB-C ports on it. There's no SD card slot. All of that is stupid. I'm not saying that Apple is perfect by any means. I mean, I always despised Steve Jobs as the schmuck and the scumbag that he was, and he was a scumbag. And Apple does some really crappy stuff. I mean, stupid iPhone. There's no headphone jack on the damn iPhone, okay? I have an iPhone. I'm not going to praise Apple endlessly because no company is perfect, far from it. Because I know someone will bring that up, but it really amazes me how similar the psychology is. It's a fundamental disconnect from being able to see the totality of what something is. The same thing exists in all forms of equipment, like tractors. I remember one guy was telling me, and what do I know about tractors? I don't know jack crap about tractors. He was having an argument with some guy who wanted like a Kubota tractor for farming. How would I know anything about farming or tractors? I don't. And he was telling the guys, listen, that thing's got more bells and whistles and better mileage per gallon, but it's it's got no support and it's kind of junky and unreliable. You want this older John Deere model. Far fewer bells and whistles. 10 years older. um, Also too bulkier and slower. Not as great a gas mileage, and it even though it's older and bulkier, is more expensive. That it was reliable, and these parallels exist. There's a dichotomy of human psychology that cleaves oneself. You will cleave towards one edge or the other on the edge of the knife based upon your psychology. Some people say, oh my god, it's got the best specifications ever was, it's new, it's great, it's got 10 zillion autofocus. Yeah, you still don't get it. And I'm not arguing Sony versus Fujifilm or Fujifilm versus Sony, but the psychology is really quite apparent and stark, and no one's ever made a video like this before. No one's, looked at it objectively as a psychoanalysis of the psychology behind, like, why would someone buy, a camera like this as opposed to the camera over here? And the same thing goes for, like, why would somebody buy an Apple with less amazing specifications as opposed to a cheaper PC with much more amazing specifications? It's like, well, this PC is cheaper and it costs a good bit less, so why the hell would you buy the Apple? And the Apple people are just, you don't get it. No viruses, far better resale, the integration, the computers, handshaking with the phone, the menu systems, the operating system. It's like, I don't care if it's not good for gaming. Gaming is for douchebags. I said that. There we go. Gaming's for douchebags. Productivity is important. Most people are trying to be productive or not gaming. You're right, an Apple computer is not a gaming machine. Even Apple themselves will tell, it's usually, hey, you want a gaming machine? Go buy a damn PC. Buy one of those $400 piece of crap machines that'll, has like 100 gig of VRAM on it. Not literally video RAM, to refresh the screen for gaming. I actually find it stark and amazing how close the psychology is, how absolutely parallel the psychology is between those who would gravitate towards a Sony as opposed to a more reliable, superior camera. And it's the same people, they just don't, the Mac people understand the PC people, and that's why they own a Mac. It's like, most of the Mac people were PC people at one point in time until they saw the lights. Like, this is a more expensive computer and it doesn't have the most amazing specs. I'm much, much, much happier here and much less stressed out using the Mac. That's not always the case. I mean, that's a hyperbolic generalization, but generalizations exist because they're generally true. That's actually the one thing I hate about modern humanity, is they always think that a generalization is just always... So it's like, no, generalizations do exist, and they exist because they're generally accurate. Human beings and the entire animal kingdom works off generalizations, They don't have to be accurate all the time. They only have to be generally or, mostly accurate. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to make this video. I'm sure it'll get lots of hate, but, I was being honest and forthright in this video. Don't like it? Hey, that's your prerogative, right? I've never told anybody to like a video of mine. Please click the like button below. I can't stand it when I hear other people say that crap in their videos. It's like, who cares? Just be honest and put the information out there. Someone likes it, fine. They don't like it, fine. Who gives a damn? Thanks, bye.